All right, how's it going? I am the proud new owner of an Enlightened Equipment Apex 40 summer quilt. It's 7 feet long and 4.5 feet wide. It weighs 1 pound, 1.5 ounces. Recently, I've come across a few pieces of gear that all weigh that same amount, about 1 pound, 2 ounces. The Dyneema Hexamid tent from Z-Packs weighs 1 pound, 2 ounces. And then from REI, for only $125, $130, you can get the Sierra Designs High Route 2 tarp. And that tent also weighs the same. It weighs 1 pound, 2 ounces. I also recently got a summer bag, a 7 foot long, long wide summer bag from a European company called Pajak. The sleeping bag was called the Radical 1Z, and it had 950 fill ducktown in it. And that sleeping bag also weighed 1 pound, 2 ounces. I swapped it out for this 7 foot long summer Apex quilt from Enlightened Equipment, and this quilt also weighs 1 pound, 2 ounces. Or actually, in this case, it only weighs 1 pound, 1.5 ounces. It's a half an ounce lighter than the other guys. Now this quilt, the quilt that I picked out, it's got the high-vis orange on the shell, and then it's got the darker blue color on the liner on the inside. And right now it's got DWR on it. And it's 7 denier. The liner and the shell are both 7 denier. Now the advantage of having a 7 denier liner and shell is that it's thinner, and the 7 denier nylon will dry quicker because it's so thin. Water's gonna dry out off of the fabric a lot faster. Also, your warmth, the heat from your chest is gonna travel up into the insulation easier because your body heat is gonna pass through the 7 denier liner easier and warm up the sleeping bag faster because it's thinner. So when I'm laying underneath here, my body heat is gonna go right through the shell up into the insulation, and the insulation is gonna get warm fast. And also the rain and whatnot, whatever water's on the quilt, it's gonna come out of the quilt fast because the shell and the liner are so thin. Now, let's say it's in the middle of the night and I want to go to the bathroom and it's cold out. So I grab my quilt and wrap it around me and go bushwhacking behind some trees and whatnot to go to the bathroom. The 7 denier nylon can easily just rip open and the quilt will be wrecked pretty quick. So as long as the quilt is protected inside of my backpack or protected inside of my tent, and it's in there, away from the sticks and away from all the branches and whatnot, and I'm gonna be using it to sleep, it should be fine. But these lightweight nylons are not good for bushwhacking. If you hang it on a tree branch to dry, it could somehow rip open. The stuff it's not durable, it's just thin, okay? Now, as far as the DWR that's on here, that's gonna be good for like cowboy camping. If I'm just sleeping out under the stars and I've just got this on me, it's gonna suffer from condensation and it's gonna get wet. The durable water repellent DWR that's on here that causes it to be kind of shiny, that's gonna help repel the water and cause the water to beat up and come up off of the quilt easier. However, it's not as comfortable. One of the reasons I swapped out the Pajak Radical 1Z for the Apex 40 was because I thought that the Apex 40 would be more comfortable because it uses nylon instead of quantum Pertex. Now I've got some quantum Pertex here. This is my go-to sleeping bag right here. This is the Pajak Radical 4Z, and it's got 950 fill down in it, plus it's got quantum Pertex. The quantum Pertex though, it kind of has that waxy DWR is built into the fabric and it doesn't come off. And so it feels kind of waxy and sticky and itchy. It doesn't really work that great as a summer bag. So I got rid of the summer bag, which was the Radical 1Z, and I swapped it out for the EE40. And hopefully, you know, the Apex 40 is extremely easy to wash. That Apex that's in here, it's not gonna move around, it's not gonna get disturbed by Washington. It's just plastic, it's polyester plastic, and it'll do fine in the washing machine. And when I wash it, the DWR is gonna come off of here. Now, one of the disadvantages of this quilt is it's so big. It's 7 feet long and 4.5 feet wide, which is a lot of blanket. It's a ton of quilt. When I wash it, if I put it in the dryer, what's gonna shrink is the threading. So the nylon itself is not gonna shrink, and the Apex inside, the insulation, that also is not gonna shrink. It's the stitching that's going to shrink. I'm going to lose about an inch or two off of the width, and I'm going to lose about an inch or two off of the length. And as a result, you know, that's gonna shrink down the size of the quilt a little. But because I got the quilt so big, it's not really gonna make a difference. It's gonna be fine. However, you know, you can just see that the difference between the two of these sleeping bags. This one is so thin. You know, this is listed as an Apex 40, and this right here, this is the Pajak Radical 4Z. This is also a 40. You can see that the Pajak sleeping bag is so much bigger than the EE40 Apex 40. You know, and to be honest with you, you gotta eyeball it and just take a look at your quilt and admit to yourself whether it's really gonna be warm or not. To be honest with you, this looks a lot more like a 50 than a 40. So basically what I'm finding is that, you know, what EE sent me is pretty thin. You know, this layer of Apex, it's really a summer bag. It's really just a 50 bag. Not only that, but Apex has a hollow filament in it. When you squish it down into your pack, it loses its loft because once you squish that Apex down, it doesn't really puff back up the way that it was. So this right now, while the quilt is new, this is the warmest that the Apex is ever gonna be. Every time I shove it into my pack and pull it out, it's gonna be a little less warm than it was before, because when I squish it, I'm crushing those hollow filament, those little polyester plastic hairs that are in the polyester insulation. Those are getting squished. And when I pull it out of my pack, it's not gonna be as warm as it was. So I am planning on wearing my clothes underneath this quilt since it's just a summer quilt and that's it. But it actually is not gonna be as warm over time. Each time I use it, every time I go out camping with this quilt, it's gonna be a little bit cooler and not quite as warm as it was. Already, I would say it's already not that warm. Not only that, but the Apex that's in here is very fluffy. It's very soft. And when it bunches up, you end up getting a hot spot. If I clip this around my neck, it's really hot around my neck and my neck will start to sweat. So, you know, once it's clumped up, it's really hot, and otherwise it isn't very hot. If I went with twice as much Apex, if I got the Apex 20, there would be a ton of Apex in here and it would be toasty hot. But as I shove it into my pack and pull it out, all of that Apex is gonna get squished and it's not gonna be as lofty and not gonna be as warm over time. So that Apex 20 is gonna end up feeling more like an Apex 40. This Apex 40 already looks like an Apex 50, and it's gonna really feel like an Apex 50 after I use it for a while. Next year, you know, if I use this and pack it out several times, it's gonna start to feel like a summer bag more and more over time. It's gonna be cooler and cooler and cooler as I go, because it doesn't have that much Apex in it, and this Apex is not gonna provide as much warmth over time. Normally when people buy an Enlightened equipment quilt, they usually get the down 10-degree bag because that 10-degree bag has tons of down in it. I do think it's better to get 800 fill down than 950 fill down or 1,000 fill down. When you get 1,000 fill down or 950 fill down, there's far fewer plumes of down in there. It takes a lot less down to be as warm. Once you wash it, that down has a harder time spreading out into the baffles. If you use 800 fill down, there's a lot more feathers in there and it's gonna fill out into the baffles a lot easier and you're gonna be able to live in it. If you've got 950 fill down, there's way fewer down plumes in there and then it's gonna have a tough time spreading out into the baffles and you're gonna end up with cold spots. That's what happened to me with the Pajak Radical 1Z. It worked fine when it was new, but once I tried to wash it, it had tons of cold spots all over it because it uses 950 fill duck down and that stuff did not fluff up and fill out the baffles the way that I needed it to. And I ended up with a 50 bag that was more just like an itchy, sticky plastic sheet, you know, and the Quantum Pertex feels very waxy like DWR. It's not really comfortable. So I thought that I would be better off with the EE40. And I think it's fine. I think that this EE40 Apex is fine. However, it's obviously a summer quilt. And when you're going bivouacking and summer hiking, you want to use a smaller backpack, like a 30 liter pack, you know. This is not going to fit that easy into a 30 liter pack because you can't compress it. So you can't really squish it down. So since you're losing your loft and you're losing your warmth as you squish it, you don't want to shove this Apex 50 down into a little stealthy day pack. You don't want to just bring a little tiny pack with this. You want to put it in loosely into a bigger pack. It only weighs 1 pound, you know, 1.5 ounces. So it's not going to cause your pack to be heavy, but you don't want to squish it into a little pack. You want to bring a full-size pack, not a stealthy pack. Even though it's so light and so small, it still isn't great for stealth camping because you need to put this into a larger pack so that it doesn't get squished as much. Now, in addition to that, Enlightened equipment quilts do not work by themselves. They're paired with another piece of kit, which I have underneath here. Thermarest sells 3 air pads that will work with your EE quilt, and you have to get one of these 3 air pads. They're all the large mummy, and they're all from Thermarest. The Uberlite, the X-Lite, and the X-Therm all will work with your Enlightened equipment quilt, but they've got to be the large mummy size. The regular mummy is a funny shape. The square one, the rectangular one, is a funny shape. The only Thermarest that's the proper shape is the large mummy, and the only ones that are going to be warm enough to work with your Enlightened equipment quilt are the Uberlite, which is the gray one, but that one might pop. You've got the X-Lite, which is the yellow one, and you've got this green one, which is the X-Therm. The X-Therm is the heaviest, but this one doesn't pop. This one is definitely warm. It's really warm and it doesn't pop. And this one is going to be warm enough to use with your Enlightened equipment quilt. You've got to use both together. You can get away with that yellow X-Lite, but you never know, it might pop. With the green one, with this X-Therm, you don't need to bring Tyvek, you don't need to bring a ground cloth. It's not gonna pop. It's got a thicker material on the bottom than on the top. The X-Lite has got the same material on the top and the bottom. So that's the difference between the yellow and the green. But it's gotta be one of these large mummy Thermarest air pads. You have to get it, because this is the only air pad that's warm enough to use with your quilt.